Rock and roll, sir.
Defense?
We're present and ready, Your Honor.
All right. Do we have a agreed plea, or what is this?
It was an
Yeah,
agreed plea.
All righty. Mr. Mangold, would you raise your right hand? You solemnly swear that in this proceeding, the responses and information you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank you. You may put your hand down. Mr. Mangold, before we go further, I need to cover orally on the record several constitutional rights and protections that you have. Now, it is my understanding that you intend to enter a plea in this matter. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And Mr. Gilbert and Mr. Edelman, y'all have the details of that agreed to. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, Mr. Mangold, first order of business. I will be discussing these things with you right now on the record, and then you will find my expectation is that there's written documentation to cover, if not once or twice, perhaps even 3 times, the different rights and protections that you have. Now, do you understand that we're going to do this verbally and then we're going to go over it in writing?
Yes, Your Honor.
First right is the right to remain silent. That, sir, means that you do not have to make any kind of statement. You don't have to answer questions. You don't have to submit written paperwork, especially papers that admit or confess to wrongdoing. Do you understand you have the right to remain silent?
Yes, Your Honor.
In this plea, you have indicated in writing, and I'll ask you now, are you giving up the right to remain silent, and you will answer questions and submit paperwork in this proceeding?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. In addition, you have the right to a jury trial. In this, because you're entering a plea, obviously you're giving up the right to a jury trial. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
You understand you have that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
You also will give up, because of that, you're giving up the right to confront any witness who would testify against you. There won't be testimony because you are entering a plea. Are you aware and do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
There's also a right called the right to appeal. Basically, a right to appeal is a right for you or your attorney or the two of you together to demand that a higher court review the official record in this proceeding and the evidence for whatever challenge you'd want to make. That right you give up when you make a plea, and I honor the agreement that you've made. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, you have a right to have this proceeding, to demand this proceeding be held in open court. Because we have the COVID pandemic, we're not doing hearings or proceedings in open court. Instead, we're doing them by video conference. Do you understand you have the right to demand this be in the public courtroom?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you're giving that right up, and you're willing, and you do consent, you and your attorney, to doing this on video conference. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, this is being streamed on YouTube, which makes it public. Anyone who wants to tune in or wants to see and hear and whatever, they can do that on YouTube. Also, the state has that same right to demand that this be done in the public courtroom. They have also consented to video conference. You are now looking at a document. And by the way, at the top, all the documents with one exception will have, we'll start off with this introductory information. Cause number 632159, the state of Texas versus Jeffrey Thomas Mangold in the county court at law number 5, Bexar County, Texas. That portion of it will be repeated in almost all of the documents. Now, the title of this particular document is State's Consent to Video Conference. You can see that it has a very legible signature by Mr. Randy Jeffries on behalf of the District Attorney's Office, the state of Texas. The document you're now seeing repeats the information at the top, And this one is titled Discovery Acknowledgement. Did you review this with your attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
This one says, is signed by your attorney and the state's attorney. It says that Article 39.14 of the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure has been complied with. That requires that the state provide access to you and your attorney of all the information and evidence, documents, etc., that is, first of all, required by law, but more importantly, it allows you and your attorney to make an intelligent and informed decision. Did you understand that that's what that document is?
Yes, Your Honor.
As I said, it is signed by the prosecutor and by your attorney, and I have approved it. The next document is your own defendant's consent to video conference. That is, as opposed to demanding that it be in the public courtroom, we are on YouTube. This one has your signature and that of your attorney. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Next document is called the Defendant's Waiver of Constitutional Rights and Court's Admonitions. This starts off with 3 individual sentences. The first sentence is you're saying, I, Jeffrey Thomas Mangold, and I will paraphrase. It says that you know what you're charged with and you don't need me to read the paper to you that officially accused you of the offense of driving while intoxicated. In fact, the second sentence declares exactly that. You know that's what the charge is against you. The third sentence says, I hereby enter a plea of nolo contendere to the charge of driving while intoxicated. Is that understood? You see what it says?
Yes, Your Honor.
The rest of this document is essentially divided into 15 different divisions or sections. Each one is numbered. Right at the beginning, number 1, it says that, first of all, it has a vertical stack of little boxes, and the very first one has a check mark. These boxes, next to the box, they have a declaration indicating a range of punishment for a particular offense or a level of offense. The very first one, DWI first, the range of punishment is a fine from $0 to $2,000 and jail 72 hours to 180 days in jail. Did you see and understand that information?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, this entire document, did you and your attorney review it carefully?
Yes, Your Honor.
Did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor.
And do you have any questions?
I do not.
I will point out several things to you for the record. Number 2 says that you have the right to a jury trial. First of all, it says, I understand, meaning you. You have a right to a jury trial, a right to cross-examine witnesses, and a right to remain silent, and that you freely and voluntarily waive or give up those rights. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Number 3, have you ever been under medical care for mental problems?
No, Your Honor.
Have you ever been given mental health medications of any kind?
No, Your Honor.
Number 4 talks about your plea of nolo contendere. It says you're doing that because you reviewed with your attorney, you've gotten his advice, and you reviewed the evidence and information, and you believe it is ultimately in your best interest to plead nolo contendere. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, number 5, have you ever been registered or participated in sex offender registration program?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Number 6 essentially talks about as a judge, you have made an agreement with the state for recommendations. As the judge, I have the authority and responsibility to decide if I accept that deal or I reject it. I can also give you any punishment in the range of punishment, even if it's higher than what you agreed to, so long as it's within the legal range. If I reject your deal, or if I give you a punishment heavier than what you agreed to, then you would be allowed to withdraw your plea and start all over again, and nothing that you're saying now or anything that you've signed up till now would be used against you. Is that clear?
Yes, Your Honor.
If I give you the punishment you agreed to, or less, in other words, if I honor your agreement or even lower it, the punishment, then you would have no right of appeal unless there's been motions filed and ruled on prior to this hearing today. Sir, where were you born?
Royal Oak, Michigan.
Okay. For the record, you are a U.S. citizen, and that takes care of several things that need to be referred to. 9 and 10, I don't think apply. 11. Well, essentially, the rest of these, in particular number 15, you have a right to demand that I have a risk and needs assessment report given to me before the final sentencing. Do you understand you have that right?
Yes, Your Honor.
And according to this document, number 15, you and your attorney reviewed it. You have signed saying you're waiving that right. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Next document, we'll start off with the same introductory information. This one talks about the right of appeal. Now, I mentioned it to you a little while ago. This time, this is a written declaration wherein I am saying I certify this criminal case, and you'll see the fifth little box. There's a stack of boxes lined up vertically, and they have next to each one a declaration, a statement concerning the right of appeal. The fifth box, I have checked it. It says I find, I certify that this is a plea bargain case and the defendant has no right of appeal. You have reviewed this and you're aware of it and signed it. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
The next document is the application for deferred adjudication. Mr. Mangold, did
Yes.
you review this document carefully with your attorney?
I did.
Did you understand it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do you know and understand what you're committing to or what you're declaring to me under oath as far as your application?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. This document is signed by you. The court is taking it into consideration. The next document should be the plea agreement. Oh, pardon me. This one is a personal data sheet.
Are y'all there? Anyone?
Pardon me? This next document is a personal data sheet. Did you put in this information, sir?
Yes, I did.
And is it all true and accurate?
Yes, I did.
All right. Now, you work full-time. You work for Blue Duck Scooters.
Yes, sir.
All right. Looks like you make a significant income. That's good. You put the 3 references. All righty. You are single. You have 0 dependents.
Correct.
Very good. You served in the military, it looks like.
No, sir.
I'm sorry. It is marked no. Thank you. And you have a vehicle. All right. Then now we have the plea agreement. It'll come up shortly. All right, now we have before us a document titled Plea Agreement. It has a slightly different introductory information. It doesn't mention the court, it just says State of Texas versus Jeffrey Thomas Mangold, case number 632159. The first 2 boxes will be checked. The first box talks about, again, your right to remain silent and that you are obviously waiving that right. It also will be checked off that you are a U.S. citizen. The next section is defendant's acknowledgements. There are 5 boxes with declarations next to each one. Did you review each one and check it off?
Yes, Your Honor.
The information there is true and correct.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Will? Okay, I'm sorry. Mr. Edelman,
Yes, sir.
what will be the state's action on this? What will be the movement, if anything? Are you going to proceed on DWI first?
Yes, we will proceed as alleged.
All right. Then the plea, Patricia? You have said it a couple of times, sir, but I'll ask you again at this point officially, what is your plea to the charge of DWI first?
Null contender.
All right. For the record, a nolo contendere is considered a guilty plea in this court, and it could be sufficient for me to convict you. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, I need you to understand that deferred adjudication means that, well, I will say this. I find that there's sufficient evidence to find you guilty, including your own plea. However, because of the agreement for deferred adjudication, I will be honoring that agreement, and instead, I will not enter a finding of guilt at this time. You are granted deferred supervision for a term of 12 months. You're assessed a fine of $400, of which, if you perform 100% of the conditions of supervision, if you live up to them, then you will pay a $300 fine, not a $400 fine. You will perform 48 hours of community service restitution. In addition, you will in good faith enroll in and complete the DWI education program, the DWI victim impact panel. You will submit to a TAP evaluation and follow recommendations. You will have for 6 months an ignition interlock monitoring device installed in your vehicle. During the entirety of deferred adjudication, you're not to have any alcohol whatsoever. And the ignition interlock, of course, will monitor whether you're drinking, at least during the times that you're drinking. I suggest to you that any kind of alcohol consumption will result in the state asking me to give you official notice, bringing you in for a hearing, at which time I might, depending on the evidence, I might enter an adjudication, a final conviction. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
I do require very religiously 100% of compliance with the conditions, particularly on deferred adjudication, because you're getting a significant break. If you complete 100% of it, the DWI is not is closed without a final conviction. It stays out of a final conviction, and the opposite of that is true. That if you get convicted, it follows you the rest of your life. Period. Your supervisory fee will be set at $60 a month. Now, I will be signing all of this. I will inform you now. The state of Texas, in its genius, has decided that if somebody is convicted of a DWI, they're fined $3,000 on the DWI first. Now, right now, this is a deferred adjudication. Let me encourage you not to violate your conditions, because if you do, you wind up with a conviction, and you also have, besides all of this, a $3,000 fine. This is your first and only DWI, right?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. The second one goes to 5,000 and etc. So anyway, be aware that the last thing you want is a conviction. Mr. Edelman, any questions?
No, sir.
Mr. Gilbert, any questions?
Yeah, Judge, one point, I think Mr. Jeffries and I had discussed the possibility of Mr. Mango buying out some of those community service hours. And my understanding is that Your Honor does allow that. So I just ask that if Mr. Mango makes that election, that he be allowed to buy out those hours.
Yes, sir. There's at your with your income, I will authorize buyout at $20 an hour That's a little bit higher than most because you make a lot more money than most. The payments can be, my first preference is that you make that donation to the Gabriel Project. The staff can tell you. You have an option though. You can choose the Gabriel Project or you can choose the San Antonio Food Bank. It's up to you. Now, Mr. Mangold, you're single now and you are blessed with a significant income. Be careful in the future about drinking and driving. It's financially a kick in the butt. I'm sure that Mr. Gilbert that is not representing you out of the kindness of his heart, but he is entitled to a good fee, and I'm sure he has obtained it, or I expect that he has or will. The point I'm making, though, is that's just financial. The worst thing can happen to you now is that you're driving, you've been drinking, and you injure or kill somebody. Kill yourself. No, people say, well, how sad. Kill somebody that's innocent, and people say, hey, that's horrible. So be aware of that. You got to be super careful, because in the future, these matters will always be looked at for consideration on prosecution and punishment. Mr. Gilbert knows what he's doing. He's gotten you a hellacious deal, and good for him and good for you. But be aware, it doesn't always happen like that. Any further problems of this nature, I will tell you, Mr. Gilbert will tell you, you'll be looking into some really big problems, okay?
Yes,
Be
Your Honor.
careful.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gilbert, good work. You take good care, all of you.
Judge,
Yes.
does
Oh,
he need,
yes.
does he need,
Mr. Mangold, I'm sorry. Patricia Garcia, my coordinator, is trying to remind me that's her job to see that I do everything I'm supposed to. You need to, within 7 days, go by the courthouse, County Court 5, and have them help you put a thumbprint on the documents as required, okay?
Yes, sir.
Do that within 7 days. Anything else?
Nothing from the state, sir.
Mr. Mangold, Mr. Gilbert, you and your families, your loved ones, be blessed, be well, be safe, and you are now excused, except does Maricela